The story begins with a man who dreamed only of becoming the strongest of all, but his journey ended in tragedy. Amidst the rain and the fallen, he wonders why everything had to end this way. Just then, an enemy approaches, saying he now understands the warrior's power. The opponent calls him Doko Hyen, stating he's the closest to being the ultimate fighter. But Dogo cuts him off, demanding to know why they didn't honor their duel agreement. The old man Hwangbo Song, leader of the Murim alliance, simply stares back at him. At that, the swordsman lets out a laugh, mocking the orthodox faction and its traditions. He accuses everyone there of being nothing more than a bunch of cowards. One of the men beside the elder becomes furious with the warrior's audacity. However, the leader agrees that from Dago's perspective, the situation is quite unfair. He explains that Dago trained for 10 years, defeating master after master in duels. For that reason, the old leader admits he respects the fighter's incredible skills. Yet he clenches his fist, declaring the swordsman has no honor whatsoever. If all he cares about is testing his strength, he's no different than a wild animal. The path he walked has made him public enemy number one of the entire Murim. So, the old man tells the protagonist not to be so upset about how things turned out. He then orders his men to make him rest in peace, once and for all. Understanding the situation, the swordsman prepares the first form of his 13 swords. Shouting that they're just afraid of him becoming the strongest, he unleashes his technique. The attack is so fast that one of the enemies can't even see the blade coming. Even while injured, he dodges an attack and prepares to fight against everyone. In response, the enemies surround him with swords drawn, ready for the final strike. One of them yells that the Murim's public enemy is advancing and orders them to take him down. However, the swordsman's body is already at its limit, forcing him to find a way to escape. To do so, he decides to use the fifth form of his technique to clear a path. His sword glows with a green energy as he unleashes a powerful slash forward. But the attack is easily stopped by the alliance leader with just one foot. The protagonist is floored by how effortlessly his strike was blocked. Next, the old man sends him flying with a powerful kick, disarming him in the process. Quickly, the alliance leader grabs the sword and strikes the warrior without holding back. He holds the swordsman by the neck, admitting it was a good thing he brought his men. After all, they managed to grab the fighter's attention and successfully create a distraction. With that, the old man prepares to use the Divine Cloud Dragon Palm. The leader declares it's time for the enemy of the Murim to finally depart from this world. A wave of energy hits him head-on, launching him off the cliff. As he falls, a pathetic and empty feeling washes over him because of his inevitable defeat. He just wanted to be recognized as the strongest, but this was his sad end. With clenched teeth, he makes a vow before his last breath. He swears he will curse Hwangbo Song, the leader of the Murim alliance, forever. Even as he is passing on, he promises curse will one day reach him. Sometime later, on a beautiful mountain, the tranquility of the place is about to be shattered. 3 children run excitedly along a trail, rushing to reach their destination. They finally arrive at their secret base, an abandoned cabin. One of them asks if everyone brought snacks, but another child interrupts her. The little girl named Somi gets annoyed, and the others, afraid of her, quickly apologize. So they decide to head inside, only to find a wounded and frightening man there. The 2 boys freeze in fear upon seeing the mysterious figure in the shadows. Suddenly, the man opens his red eye and stares at the children with a deadly gaze. Screaming in terror, the boys run off, thinking they just saw a ghost. However, the girl calls them idiots, reminding them that ghosts aren't real. She tells the man that hiding like that just makes him look suspicious. With her arms crossed, the girl asks if the stranger is some kind of thief. The warrior is surprised by her courage and tries to process what's happening. He then notices the girl's calloused hands and senses a faint energy from her. Realizing she's trained in martial arts, he figures she might be from a Murim clan. The man denies being a thief, but she suspiciously points to his injuries. Deciding to play along, he asks if she isn't afraid of a thief. She declares she's not afraid of anything, saying her nickname is the Wild Child of Namunhayang. The swordsman is confused by this name and asks which province the village is in. Learning he ended up on the border, he feels incredibly lucky. Suddenly, the man's stomach starts to growl, and the girl realizes he's hungry. She then offers him a steamed bun she had saved. With a smile, the girl says it's a delicious bun and insists that he take it. The warrior just stares at her suspiciously, not accepting the food she offered. His gaze reveals a deep distrust for everyone, always on high alert. So he refuses the offer, telling the little girl to eat the bun herself. He lies, saying he's not hungry, which makes the girl a little sad at his refusal. But she decides to eat the bun herself since he wouldn't accept her kindness. As she eats, the man watches her with a serious, hungry expression. The girl notices his stare and asks if he's sure he doesn't want any. Offering the remaining half of the bun, she asks if he really won't take it. His stomach growls once more, making it impossible to hide his hunger any longer. Seeing there's no way out, he finally accepts the food, and the girl is overjoyed. After eating, he remarks that the bun is edible, and the girl asks for his name. She introduces herself as Somi Wong Somi, and waits for him to say his name. He knows he can't reveal his real identity and lies, saying his name is Mangayan. The swordsman sticks with the story of being a thief to avoid raising suspicion. At that, Somi curiously asks what he tried to steal to get so injured. He replies that he was just hungry and tried to take some food, but ended up like this. Relieved, the girl says that if it were for a bad reason, she would report him to the authorities. The swordsman questions if she's serious, but the girl says she changed her mind. Then the girl gets the man's attention, who looks at her, completely confused. With a smile, she offers him a job at her transport agency. He's puzzled, and she explains that this way he can earn money honestly. The man is skeptical, but the girl reveals that her grandfather is the owner and is hiring. Still, he refuses the offer and gets up to leave, shocking the girl. Sami holds on to him, asking him to reconsider, but the warrior has lost his patience. With that, he pushes her out of the cabin and tells her never to come back. Outside, the girl is furious with his attitude, calling him mean. She finally decides to leave, and at that moment, the swordsman collapses from his injuries. Lying on the ground, he thinks about how he barely survived the fall into the river. His injuries are severe, and the internal damage prevents him from circulating his energy. It was the Alliance leader's strike that caused the most damage to his body. To heal, he would need someone with even more internal energy than the leader himself. He thinks of a legendary master but has no idea if she would help him or how to find her. For now, he needs to focus on healing the wound on his left thigh. Night falls and the full moon illuminates the sky, bringing a moment of calm. Inside the cabin, the wounded man rests, trying to slowly regain his strength. In the middle of his rest, recent memories begin to surface. He remembers the moment little Somi offered him a warm bun. He feels grateful for the girl's help but knows he can't accept a porter's job right now. But to his surprise, the little girl appears at the cabin door again, calling his name. It turns out she didn't give up and kept visiting him every day to bring food. Once again, Sami shows up with warm buns so he won't go hungry. The swordsman is shocked by her persistence as the girl urges him to eat. He asks why she keeps coming, and she simply replies it's so he doesn't starve. Then she shows him a huge pair of scissors and asks if he can guess what they're for. The girl figures he refused the job for fear of being recognized as a thief. That's why she offers to cut his hair and change his appearance so no one will catch him. The scene cuts to outside the cabin as the little girl insists on her crazy plan. With little choice, the warrior gives in and lets her get ready for the haircut. Sami stares at him with a curious and focused expression before starting to cut. Meanwhile, the swordsman remains quiet, contemplating the whole situation. He asks if there's something on his face, but the little one quickly denies it, a bit embarrassed. The man then questions why she's helping him, and she says her grandfather taught her to be this way. She explains that she wants to help him start a new life, and he holds her hand in surprise. In his thoughts, he feels pathetic for receiving pity from a mere child. However, he recognizes the girl's good heart, which puts him more at ease. After a while, she finally finishes the haircut and shows him the result. The protagonist is in shock with his new look, at a complete loss for words. He complains about the haircut, saying he now looks like a beggar, but the little girl says she did it on purpose, so no one would pay attention to him. Looking at himself in the mirror, he thinks that no one would recognize the enemy of the Murim like this. So Doko Hyen asks if it was intentional, and she confirms that now he's anonymous. Sami says goodbye and tells him she'll be back tomorrow, reminding him to eat the bun she left. The MC thanks her, impressed by the intelligence of a 10-year-old girl. With that, he concludes that she really is the daughter from a transport agency. Just then, the weather turns and a heavy rain starts to fall outside. The rain batters the abandoned cabin where our protagonist is recovering. The girl appears again, applying an expensive ointment she took from her grandfather to his wound. He gets worried that she told someone about him, but the girl just calls him an idiot. Then Somi asks again if he really doesn't want to work at their agency. However, the warrior reaffirms that he has no intention of becoming a porter. The little one gets sad and asks if he's going to keep stealing to survive. But Doko Hyen promises he'd rather starve than do something dishonest again. Suddenly, the girl gets ready to leave, saying something unexpected came up. She warns that she might not be able to come back for a while and asks him to save the food. He then says he'll leave as soon as his leg heals, so she doesn't need to return. The swordsman thanks her for all the help she has given him up to that point, and he promises that if they ever meet again, he will definitely repay this debt. The girl smiles, saying it's a shame because she wanted to get to know him better. She says goodbye, asking him to take care as the swordsman watches her leave. Time passes and the rain continues to fall heavily in the region's mountains. Now recovered, the warrior feels he can move and decides it's time to go. But upon leaving the cabin, he finds something unexpected outside. It was a large hat that the little girl had left for him to shield himself from the rain. Doko Hyen understands the gift and prepares to finally leave the place. The scene then takes us to the Plum Blossom Transport Agency. There, a wealthy merchant is furious with Master Wang over some problem. Somi's grandfather apologizes, explaining something like this has never happened before. However, the man wants no apologies and demands payment for the goods. Little Somi overhears everything and becomes very sad about her family's situation. One of the employees asks why she's standing in the rain, but she wants to be alone. He asks her not to take too long and leaves her there with her thoughts. The girl cries, blaming herself for being just a child who can't help. With a determined look, she raises her head and tries to be strong. Suddenly, a voice asks why the wild child, who's afraid of nothing, looks so defeated. Surprised, she looks up to see the man she helped standing in front of her. Wearing the hat she gave him, he remembers the debt he promised to repay one day. So he sits down and asks if now wouldn't be the perfect time to settle that debt. With tears in her eyes, little Somi looks at the man and calls his name in surprise. He then pulls her into a hug to comfort her as she continues to cry in his arms. The little girl explains that valuable goods were stolen from the agency's warehouse. The swordsman finds this a great humiliation and asks to see the scene of the theft. With that, the two of them head to the Plum Blossom Transport Agency to investigate. Arriving at the warehouse, they find two guards at the door watching over the place. One of the men asks what Somi is doing there with that beggar following her. The MC gets very irritated at being called a beggar, he the sword demon. But the girl explains he's a poor soul, and that she'll give him some grain with permission. With the little girl's excuse, the guards finally open the warehouse doors. The guard praises the kindness of manager Somi, and the warrior is surprised by the title. Dako Hyan is impressed with the girl, and she calls him to enter the place. The two enter the warehouse, which is huge and filled with shelves and boxes. The place is packed with sacks, weapons, and various other valuable items. They walk through the enormous warehouse, observing every detail of the environment. It seems well organized and secure, despite the recent robbery. Sami shows him the box from which the red jade, the most expensive item, was stolen. She then asks for his help, since he's also a thief and knows about these things. The girl hugs him, saying that only a thief knows another, so he gives in to her request. The red jewel was small but very valuable, the perfect item to be stolen. Dako Hyan analyzes the warehouse and notes that it's well guarded day and night. With that, he points to a specific corner of the place, making little Somi curious. Then the warrior moves with impressive agility, leaving the girl amazed. He inspects every corner of the warehouse so quickly that he seems to be in several places at once. Sami praises him for being such a skilled thief and asks if he found any clues. The swordsman sees no signs of a break-in and suspects an inside job. He even raises the possibility that the red jade never entered the warehouse. But the little girl immediately denies it, saying they inspect everything that arrives. He then questions if the theft happened after the inspection, but Somi says no one left. The MC explains that the time frame would be too short unless it was a thief from inside the agency. But if the culprit had outside help, he asks if anyone disappeared after the robbery. The girl says they've already checked, and that no one at the agency would be capable of that. With a smirk, the protagonist asks if she's calling him a bad person. The little one gets flustered and says he's an exception, since he only stole because he was hungry. The warrior then changes the subject, revealing he's suspicious of the merchant. Sami understands right away and asks if he means the chubby man from Bayong. He explains that the man seemed more interested in the compensation than the merchandise itself. The girl mentions that they sell luxury items but that their business isn't doing well. Dako Hyan is impressed by how much the little one knows about the business. Very proudly, she flashes a victory sign saying the agency can't live without her. The swordsman decides to start by investigating the suspicious merchant from Bayong. With that, he asks little Somi to find out the exact location of the company. The little girl thanks him for his help and goes to carry out her mission. With a plan in mind, our protagonist prepares for his nighttime investigation. He focuses on the stolen box, imagining how the thief managed to pull off the heist. Night falls upon the city and the moon illuminates the sky, creating an air of mystery. Guards patrol the area, but the warrior hides in the shadows, completely unseen. From the top of a tree, he observes the movements and plans his silent entry. With great agility, he leaps to the roof and prepares to infiltrate the location. His movements are fast and precise, like those of a true master. He jumps from roof to roof without anyone noticing his presence. The MC moves through the shadows, dodging the guards with incredible ease. Carefully, he lands on one of the roofs and continues his search for the target. The swordsman hides behind a wall, observing the activity of the place. He notices that a specific pavilion is being more heavily protected than the others. From this, he concludes that it must be the guild master's office. Inside the office, the man celebrates the success of their plan with his manager. Master Bangju says that being honest only gets you hurt, boasting about his cleverness. He then asks his manager how he managed to bribe the rival agency. Sang Gwonso, the manager, brags that he found someone desperate for money. Outside, the swordsman hears the entire conversation and figures out the villain's plan. With a determined look, he realizes his suspicions were right all along. The Bayong master knows the rival agency won't be able to get the money in time. So instead of compensation, he's planning something much bigger and more ambitious. With an evil smile, he reveals his intention to swallow their entire property. To do this, he'll use skilled Ronin to pressure the rival agency. The manager slaps him on the head, calling the idea terrible and risky. In a rage, the man shatters his cup, furious at his manager's audacity. The master is worried because the rival agency owner's second son will soon return. He fears that a band of Ronin will be no match for a high-level master. The manager becomes desperate, asking what they should do to avoid the worst. But the boss calms him down, revealing he already has a police captain on his side. With the government involved, not even the powerful Wang Seryong will be able to do anything. The swordsman hears the name Wang Seryong and becomes curious about this person. Inside the office, the master asks about the red jade stolen from the warehouse. The protagonist overhears that they're going to trade the jewel for 500 rolls of silk. With all the information he needs, the warrior mentally calls them scammers. He decides the pair's chariot ends tonight and prepares to make his move. The manager and his guard leave the office, saying goodbye for the night. With a mischievous smile, he invites the guard for a night of fun. The manager boasts that everything is perfect and they should enjoy the night. The guard looks up at the crescent moon shining in the darkness. He suggests they just go home, but the manager remembers an old superstition. The guard scoffs at him for believing that a crescent moon brings bad luck. But the manager ignores him, insisting they should have some fun tonight. With that, the two walk together through the dark, festive streets of the city. They leave the city and enter a dark and sinister trail in the forest. Suddenly, the manager stops walking, standing still in the middle of the path. The guard calls out to him, asking him to wait up for a moment. At that moment, a mysterious figure emerges from the shadows, staring at them from a distance. Our protagonist appears, leaving the two villains completely terrified. The manager calls him a beggar and tells the guard to get rid of him quickly. But the guard senses a powerful aura coming from the man and becomes uneasy. He realizes that the man before him is an absolute master of martial arts. The swordsman then calls them rats and prepares for the coming fight. On high alert, the guard draws his sword, ready for the confrontation. He steps in front of the manager to protect him, telling him to fall back. The manager is confused, not understanding the reason for all the commotion. The warrior tells the guard to strike first, as it's the only chance he'll get. The man becomes tense, seeing no opening in his opponent, and asks who he is. The swordsman points at the guard, saying he's just a beggar passing through. He then warns that if the opponent doesn't come to him, he will go to the guard. Hearing this, the man is completely shocked and panics on the spot. Without a second thought, the guard charges with all his might toward our hero. But the MC remains calm, preparing for combat even at a disadvantage. He uses his staff like a sword and positions himself for a counterattack. With that, he uses the first form of Dako's 13 swords to fight. His eyes glow red as he unleashes the Moonlight Flower Flash. The attack creates an arc of light that clashes forcefully with the guard's sword. Zhang Qiansu is surprised because he can't use his sword energy. The protagonist realizes he can't use his own energy because of his injury. He remembers the blow that left him in this state and almost gets distracted. The opponent's sword comes dangerously close, but he manages to dodge at the last second. With a quick movement, he deflects the blade and prepares for the next attack. The guard is in disbelief that his strike was defended so easily. The swordsman then analyzes the enemy's sword with a cold, calculating gaze. The man tries again with a downward strike, using all his strength. Dako Hien notices that the opponent's sword is filled with internal energy. He thinks the guard has some skill as the two clash again. But if he were at full strength, he could crush him with just his aura, without even moving. With a precise strike, the MC uses his staff to deflect the guard's sword. Even without his internal energy and with injuries, he continues to fight masterfully. The guard gets furious for not being able to land a hit and attacks relentlessly. But the swordsman dodges every blow as if it were the easiest thing in the world. Suddenly, he closes the distance to his opponent and prepares for the final blow. Using the end of the staff, he strikes the guard hard in the stomach. The man spits out, feeling a sharp pain from the unexpected impact. The blow disarms him and makes him retreat, feeling the strength of his mysterious adversary. On his knees, the guard is completely incapacitated after the hit. Seizing the opportunity, our protagonist prepares to end the fight. He states that those who point a sword at another have no right to complain. With that, he delivers the final blow, following the merciless law of the Murim. With a cold and determined gaze, the warrior finishes the combat without hesitation. The guard's body falls to the ground, and the swordsman turns to his next target. The manager, who is watching from a distance, is terrified by the scene he just witnessed. He hides behind a rock, trembling in fear of the mysterious man. Only the sound of the wind and the tension of the moment fill the dark night. The manager is in shock after seeing his best swordsman defeated so easily. With his heart racing, he knows he needs to get out of there as fast as possible. But before he can move, the swordsman appears behind him in an instant. The manager tries to run, but the swordsman takes him down with a precise kick. The man falls to the ground with the impact and has nowhere to escape. Desperate, he begs for his life, offering all the money he has. But our protagonist doesn't care about money, he wants something else. With a threatening look, he approaches, saying they're going to have a little talk. The warrior raises his staff, preparing for a not-so-friendly interrogation. The manager screams in pain as night birds fly away, startled by the noise. Lying on the ground, he begs the swordsman to stop, asking why he's being hit. The protagonist scoffs, saying he should have asked that before getting beaten so badly. Then the warrior reveals he wants to know the exact location of the Red Jade. The manager thinks he was sent by the rival agency, mistaking him for Wang Seryong. But the MC ignores him, stating that he asked the questions, and the manager only answers. With the staff in his face, the villain finally gives in and reveals where the jewel is. He fears the swordsman will take him out after he tells, but the hero says it depends on him. With no choice, the manager leads the warrior to his house where the jade is hidden. Sang Guanso's house is luxurious and well protected, but they enter without any trouble. Inside, the manager hands over a small pouch containing the stolen red jade. The protagonist takes the pouch and confirms that the valuable jewel is indeed there. Inside the pouch, the red jade shines with a rare and impressive beauty. Next, the MC asks his second question. He wants to know who the contact at the other agency was. The manager reveals that the contact was an escort named Yang Yap. The swordsman asks if he traded the job for forgiveness of his debt. But the man says he asked for more money, likely for gambling. The MC decides he needs to investigate this Yang Yap to solve the case. With all the information gathered, the protagonist prepares to leave. He warns that the manager will meet his end if he finds out who he is, but the villain doesn't care. Desperate, the man says he doesn't want to know, and just wants the swordsman to go. As soon as the warrior leaves, the manager starts cursing him, calling him a scoundrel. On his knees, he complains about the mysterious man who took his jade. With a bloody nose, he promises to get revenge and recover the stolen jewel. He swears he will find the man and make him pay dearly for what he did. But suddenly, the swordsman appears behind him with a threatening aura. With a direct hit, he smacks the manager right in the face with the staff. The protagonist asks if he still hasn't learned his lesson after all that. With the jade in hand, he leaves the manager unconscious and departs from the scene. He walks through the night, returning to the cabin where little Somi awaits. Using his makeshift fishing rod, he tosses the jade inside the cabin. The warrior is about to leave when he hears a noise from inside. Little Somi appears at the door and calls out to him, surprising our hero. He's shocked to see her there, wondering what she's doing in the cabin. Somi explains that she ran away from home because she was worried about him. The girl looks him up and down, concerned about his health. Suddenly, she notices the wound on his leg has started to bleed a little again. The girl panics, asking if he got hurt somewhere else. The MC gets annoyed and asks what she's talking about to calm her down. He shows her the thigh wound that reopened during the previous fight. Carefully, the girl starts to treat his wound with some medicine. The swordsman scolds her for being out so late, saying her parents must be worried. But the little one reveals that her father passed away and she never knew her mother. The protagonist understands that she grew up with hardships, which is why she's so strong. With tears in her eyes, Somi apologizes, saying she asked too much of him. At that moment, the red jade the warrior tossed falls beside her in the cabin. He says he found it on the way, and the girl picks up the pouch, curious about its contents. Upon opening it, she sees the stolen jewel and realizes it was the Byong merchant's. With the jewel in her hands, she cries with happiness for having recovered the item. Suddenly, the girl jumps into the swordsman's arms and hugs him tightly. She thanks Mr. Thief, and the warrior complains about the nickname he got. He then says they need to hide the jade because he has something to do before returning it. The next day at the agency, the escort Yang Yap leaves punctually as always. He says goodbye to his colleagues, mentioning he has something important to take care of. Through the bustling city streets, our protagonist follows the suspect closely. From a distance, he and little Somi watch the escort Yang Yap carefully. The swordsman says they're going to find out the truth, while Somi doubts her uncle. The pair hides in alleys and on rooftops to avoid being seen by their target. The MC asks why the girl followed him, and she says she needs to see it with her own eyes. Suddenly, the warrior is startled by the suspect's proximity and quickly hides her. He pulls her down so they won't be discovered in the middle of the street. The escort continues on his way without realizing he's being followed. The girl scolds him for being so careless and reminds him to eat to heal himself. They continue following the man, and Somi notices he's not going home. The swordsman confirms his suspicions when he sees two brutes at the door of a building. The escort walks toward the mysterious place without looking back. He passes by the gambling house and then enters a pharmacy right after. The man asks the pharmacist if the doctor is available at the moment. The protagonist is surprised, wondering why the suspect went to a doctor. Yang Yap picks up the medicine and goes to a simple house on the outskirts of the city. Arriving home, he finds his sick mother waiting for him in the living room. The old woman coughs, saying his life would be easier if she just passed away. But her son scolds her, telling her he finally got the money for the elixir. The mother is shocked and asks where he got so much money for the medicine. He lies, saying he saved the money from his job at the agency. But his mother doesn't believe him, questioning how he saved money while in debt. The son is shocked to learn that the merchants came to their house. The mother slaps him across the face, demanding he tell the truth right now. With tears in her eyes, she asks if he stole the money from the agency. The old woman accuses him of betraying the trust of Master Wang, who is always so good to him. Yang Yap tries to deny it, but his mother doesn't believe him, calling him a fool. She feels guilty that he went down the wrong path because of her. In an act of desperation, the mother grabs a sharp object and holds it to her neck. Her son becomes frantic, begging her not to do anything rash. But the mother says she'd rather pass on than live with her son's dishonor. The young man panics, not knowing what to do to stop his mother. Suddenly, a child's voice calls for grandma, and little Somi appears at the door. She introduces herself, and the old woman and her son are surprised by the visit. The escort recognizes Master's granddaughter and doesn't understand what she's doing there. The girl thanks him for remembering her, and the old woman asks the reason for her visit. Somi shows a bag of silver, and the young man is shocked by the amount. She explains that her grandfather sent her to help with the treatment. Besides the silver, the girl also brought warm buns for them to eat. With a smile, she says her uncle seemed troubled, which is why she came to help. The mother cries, saying she can't accept so much money from such a generous man. But the girl insists her grandfather considers her son essential to the agency. With tears in her eyes, the old woman asks if this is true and is deeply moved. She hugs little Somi tightly, thanking her for the help and support. Emotionally, the mother thanks her once more while crying with relief and gratitude. The son also cries at the scene, feeling relieved by the unexpected help. From a distance, the swordsman watches everything, seeing that his plan worked out in the end. After resolving the situation, the pair walks back to the city together. The MC says the traitor would have paid the price, but Sami didn't want the grandmother to pass away. He then asks if she doesn't hate the man who betrayed her family's trust. The girl admits that she does, as her grandfather always treated him very well. The warrior praises her for forgiving him, saying she has the heart of a Buddha. Sami explains that besides feeling sorry for him, her uncle is the bravest escort at the agency. The young man cries with remorse and gratitude as he looks at the box with the money and buns. That's why the girl wanted to give him a second chance to redeem himself. The protagonist teases her for giving away the bun that was meant for him. The girl apologizes and offers to buy another, but he refuses. He tells her to go back to the agency and wait, as the payment deadline is running out. The swordsman reassures her, saying someone will return the jade in time. And that someone is the manager himself, who will bring the jewel back to the agency. The escort Yang Yup walks with determination to recover what was stolen. He decides he needs to fix the problem he caused, even if it costs him his life. In the forest, the man waiting for him complains about the manager who got him into this mess. The fence who was supposed to take the jewel wonders why he has to do this dirty work. Suddenly, the swordsman appears, and the man wonders if he should steal the jewel and run. The fence turns around and is surprised to see the warrior standing behind him. Without hesitation, the escort draws his sword and prepares for combat. He demands that the man return the merchandise that belongs to the merchants. The swordsman warns him that those who lay hands on others' property end up in a bad spot. But the young man yells that he's trying to fix the mistake he made in his life. He charges forward, trying to forcibly take back the pouch with the jade. The MC dodges the attack and hits him with the staff, sending him flying. The escort falls to the ground but gets up quickly to continue the fight. The protagonist warns that he'll get hurt and should leave if he doesn't want to meet his end. But the young man doesn't care, yelling for the swordsman to hand over the jewel. He charges again with his sword in hand, determined to retrieve the item. The warrior then says he will be punished for having touched what is not his. The escort gets irritated and tells him to stop playing games with him at once. With that, the swordsman attacks with a series of fast and precise strikes. The young man tries to defend himself but is hit squarely by the protagonist's attacks. The escort endures the blows, standing firm to prove his determination. Night falls and the fight in the dark forest finally comes to an end. At the agency, the stolen red jade is put back in its rightful place. On his knees, the young man tells his master the whole truth, hiding nothing. He admits his mistake and asks the master to take his life as punishment. But Master Wang questions why he returned instead of running away with the money. The young man bows, hitting his head on the floor as a sign of repentance. With tears in his eyes, he says that saving his mother that way would be disrespectful. He regrets going down the wrong path and accepts his punishment. The master helps him up, saying it's alright because he came back in time. But the young man blames himself, asking to be punished to restore order in the agency. The old man scolds him, asking who will take care of his mother if he passes away. He remembers the more than 10 years they spent together and all their missions. The master asks how many times he risked his life for the agency. The escort replies that it was 32 times over all these years. Master Wang says he can't take his life for a single mistake. He praises him for being a brave escort who fights and protects his comrades. Emotionally, the young man calls out to his master with tears in his eyes. The old man comforts him, saying that his mother is also his family now. He takes the blame, apologizing for not having noticed the young man's suffering. The young man swears loyalty, saying he would give his life for the master without hesitation. But the old man scolds him, ordering him to survive to protect the agency. With tears in his eyes, the escort accepts the order and promises to obey. The starry night covers the city as a new phase begins for everyone. In the office, Master Wang reads some documents while the jade is kept safe. He carefully analyzes a map, planning the agency's next steps. Suddenly, little Somi appears at the door, calling for her grandfather affectionately. The old man is delighted with the visit and welcomes her with a big smile. The girl climbs on his back and starts to massage his tired shoulders. The grandfather realizes she wants to tell him something and encourages her to speak her mind. She asks what happened to Kunkel Yang Yap, who left crying earlier. The master explains that something worth crying about happened, but that everything will be fine. He reassures her, saying he will take care of everything so that nothing bad happens. With a smile, the girl is relieved and trusts her grandfather's words. But he reveals that the escort mentioned her name during their conversation. The old man asks how she knew where he lived so she could help him. He comforts her, saying what she did was admirable and that he just wants the truth. The girl then reveals that a friend helped her, but she can't say who it is. The grandfather is surprised, asking who this friend is that she can't reveal. She gets annoyed, saying she can't tell because she promised to keep it a secret. She reminds him that he was the one who taught her the importance of keeping one's word. The grandfather laughs, saying she's stubborn like him, but wants to repay the debt to the benefactor. The girl thinks for a moment and decides to tell the secret tomorrow, after her friend is gone. With a smile, the old man agrees and asks her to call the manager and her uncle. Excited, the girl runs off to carry out her dear grandfather's order. Master Wang watches her go with a loving and proud look for his granddaughter. Later, the master's second son arrives furiously, wanting to invade the other agency. Wang Serion wants to punish the culprits so that no one else dares to do the same. But the master calms him down, saying they will come on their own the next day. He shows the ultimatum he received after the jade was returned to the agency. Manager Jin is confused because they don't know the merchandise has been recovered. The old man explains that someone connected to Sami helped them solve the problem. He remembers the girl running through the forest to help her mysterious friend. The master knows that Bang Jiu is cunning and planned to take over the entire agency, but his plan was solved too easily, which makes him suspicious. He doesn't know who the benefactor is but assumes he resolved everything that was strange. With this unexpected help, the whole situation now makes sense to Master Wang. He doesn't know how Sami met this person, but he considers it a blessing from the heavens. So he asks Manager Jin to secretly find out who the benefactor is. And to finish, he orders the best doctor to be sent to Yang Yip's house. He also asks to investigate the living conditions of the employees' families. The master blames himself for the incident, saying he was indifferent to his men. The starry night covers the abandoned cabin where the swordsman rests. He sits on the hay, reflecting on everything that has happened in the last few days. With the crutch by his side, he seems calm and satisfied with the outcome of his plan. A slight smile appears on his face as he remembers little Somi. Suddenly, he hears a noise and goes on alert for what's to come. The girl appears, running and shouting that the red jade is back at the agency. She jumps into his arms, thanking him for helping her family and the agency. The warrior holds her affectionately, feeling happy to have fulfilled his promise. With tears in her eyes, the girl offers him buns so he can heal quickly. The cute scene of them together shows the bond they've created in a short time. Morning arrives and a new day begins in the city with a pink and orange sky. The biome merchants walk through the streets, confident in their dirty plan. The master and his men prepare for the villain's arrival at the agency. Bang Jiu and his henchmen arrive at the agency to demand payment of the debt. Suddenly, a mysterious voice calls out, telling them to show up soon. Our protagonist emerges, calling them despicable pigs without any fear. The manager and his men are surprised and irritated by the man's audacity. Everyone gathers in the agency's courtyard for the final confrontation. The next day at the Plum Blossom Transport Agency, the confrontation begins. The biome master tells his manager to stay alert, as the plan is almost complete. They look at the rival agency, certain that victory is already in their hands. Suddenly, the manager sees the swordsman's staff and remembers the previous night. The trauma of the beating he took makes him tremble with fear and break into a cold sweat. Memories of the interrogation haunt him, and he nearly faints from terror. But the master snaps him out of it, calling him enter the agency and finalize the plan. The two parties face each other in the courtyard, and the biome master starts the provocation. He demands either the compensation payment or for Master Wang to kneel and beg. With an evil smile, he says that an agency without credibility is finished. But Master Wang confronts him, saying none of that will be necessary. The man scoffs, threatening to have them investigated for the theft of the goods. Wang Seriong gets angry, threatening the biome master for his audacity and arrogance. The villain is startled to see the famous escort but was already expecting him. He reveals that he has already requested a government investigation to incriminate them. With that, government officials arrive at the agency to carry out the order. Led by the bribe captain, they prepare to raid the place. Biong Master greets the captain, telling him to keep quiet about their deal. With an evil smile, he asks the captain to destroy the rival agency. Master Wang and his son observe the arrival of the officials, exactly as they predicted. The captain shouts Master Wang's name, getting everyone's attention. He accuses the agency of misappropriating the merchants' goods and persecuting them. The agency's master defends himself, saying he will not comply with an unjust order. But the captain threatens him, using the name of an influential relative of Master Wang. The old man is not intimidated, saying the captain will be punished for helping the villains. The official gets angry at the threat and loses his patience with the situation. Furious, he orders his men to arrest everyone from the agency immediately. But Wang Seriong draws his sword, threatening to cut down anyone who takes another step. The captain accuses him of defying the government's authority with his attitude. Suddenly, Master Wang asks them to bring the proof that clears the agency. Little Somi appears, holding the pouch with the recovered red jade. She walks through the courtyard with courage and approaches the captain of the guards. The old man takes the pouch and announces that the stolen jewel has been found. With that, the girl hands the jade to the captain, proving the agency's innocence. The biome master is shocked to see the red jade in his hands. He opens the pouch and confirms that the valuable jewel is indeed inside. Surprised, he can't believe the red jade was recovered so quickly. The girl questions why he's surprised, asking if he isn't happy with the news. Not knowing what to say, the villain tries to play it cool and prepares to leave. But Master Wang accuses him of having stolen the merchandise to get the money. With the pouch torn, the red jade scatters across the floor in front of everyone. The biome master gets desperate, demanding proof of the old man's accusation. The merchant's manager tries to convince the captain that it's all a scheme. But Yang Yap feels guilty and decides he needs to own up to his mistake. Little Somi stops him, telling him to stay still and do nothing. She holds his hand tightly so he won't interfere with her friend's plan. With a smile, the girl reassures him, saying the swordsman asked him to wait. The young man is confused but trusts little Somi and obeys. Biome manager gets furious, cursing the swordsman for ruining everything. From a distance, the protagonist points at the manager and prepares to act. With a precise strike, he hits the manager's pressure points without anyone seeing. He threatens him, saying the manager will be done for in 5 days if he doesn't obey. With no choice, the villain gives in and decides to confess everything. He takes out a contract and yells that the rival agency's master is right. Manager reveals the whole plan to steal the jade and sell it to a fence. Biome Master panics, calling his manager crazy and a scoundrel. The man attacks him, trying to get the contract back so he won't be caught. He tears the paper, yelling that it proves nothing against him and his company. Suddenly, two shadows attack and immobilize him before he can react. Wang Seryong appears, finishing the villain with a precise sword strike. The Biome Master screams in pain as the agency celebrates the victory. Wang Seryong says that cutting off the hands of swindlers is a Murim custom. He then faces the captain, asking if he has a problem with that. The official is speechless as he sees the villain's hand thrown in his direction. The man yells at his men for just standing there and doing nothing. The captain gets angry and orders his men to arrest the Biome Master. The officials then take the villain away to be tried for his crimes. The agency and little Sami watch the scene with a sense of justice being served. Master Wang warns the captain that the case must be handled fairly. The girl reminds him of the governor of Kaifeng, who is a relative of her grandfather. With no choice, the captain orders a retreat, leaving the agency in peace. With victory secured, the agency celebrates, relieved with the outcome. From a distance, the swordsman observes the scene, satisfied with what he's done. With a smile, he sees that little Somi managed to save her family and the agency. With his mission accomplished, our protagonist prepares to leave the city. But little Somi sees him from afar and runs in his direction to stop him. She calls out to him, asking him not to leave after everything that has happened. With tears in her eyes, the girl begs him to stay with her at the agency. She hugs him tightly, asking once more for him not to leave her alone. The swordsman holds her, touched by the girl's affection and friendship. With tears in her eyes, the girl promises to hide him very well in the agency. But the swordsman says his goodbyes, saying they will meet again if fate wills it. Suddenly, Master Wang appears, stating that he was the one who helped the agency. Little Somi is surprised to see her grandfather there and doesn't know what to say. The old man says he heard everything from his granddaughter and asks why the warrior helped them. The protagonist tries to play dumb, but the master doesn't believe his innocence. He says he recognizes the extraordinary nature of the man behind the facade. The MC insists he's just a thief and was only repaying his debt to the girl. With that, he tries to leave, but little Somi stops him from going. The girl yells that her grandfather didn't call him a thief, that he misunderstood everything. The swordsman realizes his mistake, feeling like an idiot for giving himself away. He thinks the situation has gotten bad and that he's in real trouble now. The master says it's hard to believe he would steal without a good reason. With that, he offers our protagonist a place at the agency to use his talents. But the warrior reveals that he is a wanted man and cannot accept. The old man reassures him, offering to disguise his identity as a relative. He asks the MC for a chance to repay his debt and invites him to the agency. Little Somi holds his hand tightly, reinforcing her grandfather's invitation. She looks at him with an affectionate gaze, asking him to come with them. With tears in her eyes, the girl insists, hoping he will accept the invitation. The warrior asks for a day to think about the proposal and the master agrees. He walks through the city streets, reflecting on his future and his choices. The village is peaceful and doesn't seem to have been affected by the Murim wars. Luckily, the place isn't controlled by any of the major enemy factions. He sees no wanted posters and wonders if the alliance leader presumed him gone. The leader's strike still blocks his key and his injuries are severe. His internal injuries are the biggest problem, preventing him from fighting at full strength. Besides the injuries, he is also hungry and has no money for food. He walks the streets smelling food as his stomach rumbles with hunger. The swordsman sees a mother giving a bun to her sick child on the street. The woman says he needs to eat well to get better, and the boy happily agrees. The scene makes him smile as he remembers little Somi's kindness to him. Even with the offer, he doesn't feel ready to work at the agency. Suddenly, he hears a commotion and sees government guards looking for someone. They shout that a man injured an official and fled, and they need to find him. The guards spread out through the city, searching for the culprit everywhere. The swordsman hides in an alley to avoid being seen and runs into trouble. He comes face to face with the Biome manager, who recognizes him instantly. The villain accuses him of stealing the red jade, glaring at him with hatred. But the protagonist makes a shushing gesture and motions for him to follow. In the dark alley, the warrior and the manager face off, ready to settle the score. The swordsman asks how he recognized him, and the villain says he would never forget him. The manager boasts about having confessed everything and clearing the rival agency. But the protagonist sarcastically praises him, asking why he's on the run. The man explains that he fled to find the warrior and ask him for a cure. On his knees, he begs the swordsman to release the pressure point he hit. The MC agrees to keep his promise and prepares to fix him up for good. With a swift movement, he hits the manager's pressure points again. The villain screams in pain, feeling his whole body tremble from the new blow. He writhes on the ground, not understanding why he was hit once more. The man is left breathless, his body aching after another beating. The warrior says the pressure point has been released, and the villain thanks him in relief. But he gets curious and decides to ask the manager a few more questions. With a threatening look, he asks how many people they have already deceived. The MC gets angry at their wickedness, and his eyes glow red with rage. With one last precise blow, he finishes off the manager for his crimes. The villain falls to the ground lifeless, and the swordsman prepares to leave. He takes the manager's money, feeling a little guilty about what he did. The warrior questions his own actions and what the sword demon would do. He realizes he can't keep running and being broke forever, so he decides to act. Standing up, he decides what to do with his life from now on. The warrior is also worried about little Somi and what might happen. At the agency, Master Wong reflects on the mysterious thief who helped them. He walks along the veranda, thinking about the man his granddaughter admires so much. Suddenly, he hears a noise and goes on alert for what's to come. Manager Jin appears with little Somi asleep in his arms. In her sleep, the girl asks the swordsman not to leave. The old man takes her to her room and gently places her in bed. He covers her up, watching her sleep peacefully after an eventful day. The girl dreams of her friend murmuring his name as she sleeps soundly. The master then goes to the family's ancestral hall to pray for a bit. He lights an incense stick and prepares to honor his ancestors. With the incense in his hands, he prays before the altar with respect and devotion. The incense smoke rises, creating an atmosphere of peace and tranquility. The old man bows, asking his ancestors for protection and wisdom. He thinks about the swordsman and little Somi and how fate brought them together. Suddenly, he has a vision of the future and is shocked by what he sees. He sees the warrior and his granddaughter together on a dangerous and uncertain journey. The master is frightened by the vision, wondering what the future holds for them. He understands why his granddaughter became so attached to the man and worries about her. He remembers an old ancestor, seeing the resemblance between him and the warrior. Meanwhile, little Somi sleeps soundly in her comfortable bed. Master Wong walks through the agency's courtyard, awaiting the swordsman's arrival. With a serious and determined look, he prepares for the meeting that will change everything. Suddenly, the protagonist appears at the agency's entrance to give his answer. He says he heard the agency was recruiting porters and offers himself for the job. With a smile, the old man welcomes him, inviting him to come in and join them. The swordsman faces the master, and a new chapter begins in both their lives.